Good evening and welcome to the I-270 project webinar. My name is Mandy Wharton and I will be one of the moderators for today's webinar. In addition to the ASL option, we are conducting this webinar in English and Spanish. So need to go over a few logistics before we get started with our presentation and question and answer session. Monica Reales is available to answer any questions what you might have about technical issues, and her name and contact information is in the chat. I will be the moderator for the English language session. Sebastian Montenegro will be interpreting on the Spanish channel. For English, click the interpretation menu with the globe icon at the bottom of your screen and select Listen in English, or just stay here with me. To turn on or off the ASL interpretation link, do the same thing through the interpretation menu and select American Sign Language. Sebastian, can you welcome our Spanish speakers?
Hola, mi nombre es Sebastián Montenegro y seré su intérprete en español. Bienvenido y espero recibirlo en el audio en español. Para unirse al audio en español, haga clic en el menú de interpretación con el icono del globo terrestre en la parte de abajo de la pantalla y seleccione Escuchar en español. Ahí lo esperaré. Además, también puede escoger si quieren recibir información con el intérprete de ASL. Muchas gracias. Mandy, bye.
Thank you, Sebastian and Amber. So this meeting will be divided between a presentation from CDOT and a question and answer session in the second half of the meeting. Please feel free to type in questions you have as you have them in the Q&A button, and we will get to them at the end. If we don't have time to answer all the questions, we will publish the questions and answers on the website after the meeting. And the meeting is also being recorded, and the meeting recording will also be available on the project website. We will be conducting several polls during the webinar, and when we get to those polls, you will have questions and options. All are multiple choice, and you can select as many answers as you find appropriate. Okay, let's go ahead and get started. Here's our agenda for the evening. I have David Marinich, Project Director for the I-270 project, Chris Cameron, I-270 Resident Engineer, and Stacia Sellers, the I-270 Communications and Public Involvement Manager, with Sebastian and me here today. Dave and Chris are going to provide some background about the I-270 project and the Environmental Impact Statement, or EIS, process that we are conducting. Stacia will describe the public involvement approach for the project and outline what we've heard to date from the community and agencies. Then we will hand it back off to Dave and Chris to take a deeper dive into the different improvements that the team has been considering, and some preliminary recommendations on the ones that seem to work the best. Then we will take some questions and leave a little bit of time at the end to talk about our next steps. Before we get started, let's do our first poll. CDOT did a lot of, Monica, can you launch the poll? CDOT did a lot of advertising and notifications for this meeting and would like to know how you heard about it. We have some options here. The postcard, we sent out a mailer to a number of almost 40,000 residents. We do understand there's been some delay in the post office in getting those, but I hope that some of you did receive those. Flyer, email, heard it from a neighbor or from a friend, community event, news story, social media, or some other way. In all of these polling questions, we do have an other option, and if you want to provide any information about that, you can also type that in the Q&A. I'm going to let this open for just a minute for people to get some choices, and Monica, you can let me know when we have a number of maybe half of our attendees participating.
We are currently at 87% participation, so I think we'll.
All right, and let's see what we've got. Well, it looks like many of you, most of you, half of you heard about it through email. So that's great. If you are not on our email address, and that would be a convenient way for you to find out about things going on with the project, please do sign up on the project website. Okay, well, thank you for that. We are going to jump right into the I-270 Corridor Improvements Project, and I'm going to turn it over to David.
Hey, good evening. My name is David Marinich. I'm the I-270 Corridor Improvements Project Director. I want to thank everybody for taking the time from their evening to help us understand what you need out of the I-270 corridor and for providing your input. But before I get into the project details, I wanted to acknowledge Work Zone Awareness Week, which is very important for the I-270 corridor, where our crews are frequently making repairs. Please use caution when driving through a work zone. Work zones are temporary, but actions behind the wheels can last forever. Our utmost priority is that the drivers and people working on our highway get home safely to their loved ones. Please help us with that effort by staying alert, slowing down, and paying attention to the roads and signs. So here you'll see a picture of a deck failure on the bridge over the Burlington Canal. I think this is a really good segue to why we are proposing improvements to the I-270 corridor. So first, to orient you, the I-270 corridor improvement project covers the full extent of I-270, which is about 6 miles between I-25 and I-70 in the Denver metro area. The interstate was originally constructed in the late 1960s. There have been no major improvements to the highway since, and it's showing its age. I-270 now carries 100,000 vehicles per day, about 10% of which are trucks. I-270 is an important link in the U.S. freight transportation system, and freight operations are important both regionally here in Colorado and for the many industries along the corridor. So CDOT, Commerce City, and Adams County, we've been looking at ways to improve the I-270 corridor for more than 10 years. We are currently conducting a comprehensive environmental study of the corridor, which will be documented in an environmental impact statement, or an EIS. This is the most comprehensive type of an environmental study under the National Environmental Policy Act, also known as NEPA. Please note that throughout this presentation, we'll probably be using those acronyms, EIS and NEPA. All right, so let's take a look at the project development schedule. As I've noted, we're in the midst of an environmental impact statement. EIS is a thorough documentation and a review of potential ways to improve the I-270 corridor and a documentation of environmental and community impacts. Just a quick note, when I say potential ways to improve the I-270 corridor, those are also going to be referred to as alternatives for the rest of this webinar. So please keep that in mind. The EIS also includes commitments to mitigate any negative environmental and community impacts that are developed during the draft EIS and then recorded within the record of decision. However, beyond mitigations, we also want to hear from you about other community and environmental enhancements that may improve the project area. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that in the next slide, but I will say if all goes well, we plan to have a draft EIS at the end of the year or at the beginning of next year. And then we plan to have a record decision, the final step in the EIS process, sometime next year. Soon after that, we hope to advance the reconstruction of deficient bridges, which CDOT is continuing to maintain, but have reached the end of their useful life. So stepping back to where we're at now, instead of looking into the future, we have defined the purpose and need for the project, and we've also developed a range of alternatives that we will discuss today. We held a public meeting and conducted a series of other outreach in the fall and winter to get input on those steps. Stacia, a little bit later, will be talking more about what we heard from that outreach in a little bit. But right now, I want to go over the highlighted box in the yellow. We are in the third step on that graphic. We are evaluating which alternatives can best meet our project purpose and need. Those alternatives will be the focus of the detailed analysis in the EIS. This is a really crucial step in the EIS process, and we're going to show you our preliminary results soon. But before we get there, I think it's important for us to review the transportation problems that we're trying to solve. So I'm going to hand that off to Chris to describe that for us.
Thanks, Dave. Hello, I'm Chris Cameron, the I-270 resident engineer for CDOT. The purpose and need explains why CDOT is proposing the project and what the project is meant to address. The purpose and need is the foundation for determining which alternatives should move forward. The purpose of the I-270 Corridor Improvements Project is to implement transportation solutions that modernize the corridor and accommodate existing and forecasted transportation demands. We have 5 primary needs for the project: improving traveler safety, travel time and reliability, transit on the corridor, bicycle and pedestrian connectivity across I-270, and freight operations. Working with stakeholders and other agencies, the project has a defined goal to minimize environmental and community impacts resulting from the project. Traveler safety. More crashes happen on I-270 than on similar highways in Colorado. These crashes are largely rear-end and sideswipe crashes, caused by drivers stopping or swerving to avoid congestion, merging traffic, or other obstacles like potholes. This highway was built in the 1960s. We need to update the aging bridges, pavement, and shoulder widths. Travel time and reliability. For anyone that drives on I-270 regularly, you know that westbound I-270 is congested most of the time, and eastbound I-270 is very congested in the morning and afternoon. Additionally, when lanes are closed or partially blocked by emergency repair operations or crashes, traffic backups just get worse. Transit on the corridor. The Flatiron Flyer 5 route between Boulder and the Anschutz campus follows I-270. I-270 is the shortest length for the route, but bus drivers often detour to I-25 and I-70 to avoid the congested conditions and unreliable travel of I-270. I-270 also affects local bus travel, both for routes that cross I-270 and operating on local roads that become congested when drivers on I-270 divert to local roads to find a faster route. Bicycle and pedestrian connectivity. Getting over or under I-270 as a bicyclist or a pedestrian is challenging, as most of the existing crossing areas have missing or inadequate sidewalks. Additionally, poor connections across I-270 inhibit north-south travel, including access to the Sand Creek Greenway, an important community amenity south of I-270. Freight operations. I-270 presents challenges for trucks traveling on or entering or exiting the highway efficiently. Stop-and-go traffic and short ramps for merging are particularly challenging for heavy trucks that take longer to accelerate and decelerate. For example, freight access onto I-270 is inefficient due to the short on and off ramps of the current Vasquez interchange. Mandy, I think we are doing another poll now.
Thank you, Chris. We are doing our second poll. So based on what you heard from Chris or what you've observed yourself and using the I-270 corridor or living near it, what do you think are the biggest issues on I-270? Congestion, traffic, poor bridge or pavement condition, safety, connectivity across I-270, air quality, greenhouse gas emissions, transit, bicycle and pedestrian connectivity, residential and business impacts, other environmental resources, community facilities, or something else. We're going to pause for just a minute for you to fill out the poll, and then we'll share the results. Monica, you can let us know when we get to 50 or 75% of the participation, and we will see what people had to say.
We are currently at 71%, and now at 75, still going up. So guys, keep on giving us your feedback. We're at 84%, so I'm going to end the poll and share the results.
Great. Well, this looks similar to what we have heard in other involvement. In fact, the order is pretty similar. So I'd like to turn it over to Stacia Sellers to review the input that we've received on the project so far and the ways that we're gathering community feedback. And again, thank you for filling out that information. All the input that we get is very valuable. Stacia?
Yes, thank you so much, Mandy. And good evening. I'm Stacia Sellers. I'm the Public Involvement and Communications Manager for the project. Public involvement and community outreach are critical inputs to the EIS process. The pandemic limited our ability and methods for reaching out to residents, businesses, and other interested members of the public. The desire to hear from affected people and to understand community concerns and interests in the project was a key driver to conducting the EIS. Since late 2023, CDOT has been actively listening to community concerns. The project website has additional information on these activities. Our public involvement and community outreach will continue throughout the EIS process. What we've heard. At the October 2023 open house and later listening sessions, we heard a lot about the poor traffic and safety conditions on I-270, as well as interest in improving air quality and other conditions in the surrounding community, particularly limited bicycle, pedestrian, and transit options. Based on what we've heard, CDOT has taken a number of steps, including committing to a comprehensive EIS, revisiting and expanding the purpose and need to include bicycle, pedestrian, and transit needs, and articulate a goal to minimize environmental and community impacts, and developing new alternatives to address those needs. We engaged bilingual community liaisons to ensure more inclusive engagement and expanded in-person outreach and listening sessions. We also convened a stakeholder working group to bring community voices into decision-making and better understand community issues and priorities. Mandy, I think you have another poll for us.
Great. We do have another poll, and I wanted to remind everybody that if you have questions that are coming up throughout the presentation, please feel free to put those in the Q&A. We will be doing a question and answer session at the end of this webinar. So we have spent a lot of time looking and trying to engage the public. We have heard from a lot of you and want to know what outreach methods are the most valuable for you to stay engaged with the 270 project. Webinars like these, in-person meetings, stakeholder workshops, email updates, news stories, neighborhood events, or something else.
We're at 65% participation. So if you guys would like to vote, please go ahead and participate in the poll, please. Okay, we're at 75%, so I'm going to go ahead and end the poll. Thank you, guys. And here are the results.
All right. Looks like, not surprising, we have a lot of online people here today. So webinars are good, email updates are good. Please do sign up again. I know a lot of you are already on our email distribution list, but if you would like to join, that is an available option, and you will hear about future events like this webinar and future ones. All right, we're going to get now into the heart of our webinar and where we are in the EIS process, and turn back to Dave and Chris again to talk about the consideration of alternatives in the EIS process.
Thanks, Mandy. This is Chris Cameron again, the I-270 Corridor Improvements Resident Engineer. CDOT has been working closely with stakeholders to develop a range of potential improvements. And we have preliminary recommendations about which ones we want to move forward with and which we think we should set aside. We have 7 improvement alternatives, sometimes called build alternatives. We also have an alternative that would not do anything to I-270 called the no action alternative, which serves as a baseline to compare and weigh the impacts of the build alternatives. I'm going to provide a short overview of the alternatives, focusing on what they do for I-270, starting with those with the smallest scope and progressing to those with the largest scope. Other project elements, such as improved sidewalks at I-270 crossing and other community enhancements, could and would be part of any of the build alternatives. More information about the alternatives is available in the public meeting display boards from the in-person meetings, which are on the project website. The first two alternatives are the no action and the bicycle, pedestrian, and transit enhancement alternative. Neither of these would improve I-270 directly. The bicycle, pedestrian, and transit enhancements alternative would focus improvements in the project area only on bicycle, pedestrian, and transit, with things like new or improved sidewalks, more accessible bus stops, and improved lighting and signage. Next is the minimal build alternative. The minimal build alternative would improve I-270 by fixing the pavement and bridges, improving merging at interchanges and ramps, and widen shoulders, but would not add any travel lanes to I-270. The next set of alternatives would have the same improvements to the existing I-270 as the minimal build alternative, and would also add one travel lane in each direction of I-270. The new lane could be a general purpose lane that would operate like existing lanes, a transit-only lane that could be used only by buses, or an express lane that could be used by buses and high occupancy vehicles for free and by trucks or other drivers that choose to pay a fee. The last set of alternatives would improve existing I-270 and add 2 lanes each direction. The new lanes would include either one general purpose and one express lane, or the other option is that both of the new lanes would be express lanes. Now that I'm done providing a brief overview of the build alternatives, I will turn it back over to Dave to go through the preliminary analysis of these alternatives.
Yeah, thank you, Chris. This is Dave Moranich again, the I-270 Corridor Improvements Project Director. So based on our preliminary analysis, we've narrowed in on 2 alternatives that we think best meet the purpose and need on the corridor. We recommend the following 2 alternatives move into the detailed analysis of the EIS. On the left, the 3 general purpose lane alternative, and on the right, the 2 general purpose and 1 express lane that accommodates transit alternative. It's important to note that both of these alternatives add only 1 additional lane of travel in each direction. We recommend these instead of the other alternatives for a few reasons. Some of them, not adding a travel lane does not address the travel time and reliability needs for the project and does not improve transit or freight operations. Also, these other alternatives don't address the primary traveler safety needs associated with congested travel. Adding just a bus lane does not improve travel for freight or other traffic, and demand does not warrant a dedicated lane just for transit. Also, with the other alternatives that add 2 lanes in each direction, those do not meet the needs as well, largely because I-270 is a short corridor, only 6 miles, and I-70 and I-25, where most traffic is coming from, do not have enough capacity to process additional vehicles from 2 additional lanes. I-270 would back up from the ends and actually worsen congestion compared to only having 1 lane. To recap, this is what we recommend continuing to develop and refine. Adding 1 additional travel lane that could operate either as a general purpose lane or an express lane, improving interchanges, ramps, and shoulders, constructing sidewalks at I-270 crossings, and reconstructing the existing infrastructure. We recommend eliminating alternatives that would invest only in bicycle and pedestrian and transit enhancements, only fixing I-270 infrastructure without adding new travel lanes, adding a new travel lane that can only be used by buses, and adding more than 1 travel lane in each direction of I-270. In addition to refining the recommended alternatives and elements, we are also looking to develop bicycle and pedestrian facilities and connections, emergency responder turnarounds, transit improvements, visual and aesthetic treatments, noise reduction measures, air quality improvements, and other elements or enhancements. Mandy, I think that leads us to another poll.
Great. It also gives Dave a chance to rest his voice a little bit. He has been sick all week, so we are glad to have him trooping through the presentation. So based on what you've heard, we are recommending moving forward with the two alternatives that Dave outlined, but we would really like to know what other things are important for us to continue to keep developing and refining. Some of the ideas that we've been looking at are additional or improved bike, pedestrian, transit facilities or connections, turnarounds for emergency responders, transit improvements, visual and aesthetic treatments, noise reduction measures, air quality improvements, other environmental enhancements, or something else. And that something else may be an opportunity for you to type in a question. We are going to be heading into the Q&A session here shortly after we have this poll end, as a matter of fact. So I have a few questions, but if you have things that you are interested in, please do first finish the poll and then help us with some questions.
We're at about 54% on participation. If everyone could wrap up their answers so that I can share results, if you would like to participate. Thank you.
We did have a note in the questions that we were not providing enough space for the poll results. So we'll pause on this one a little bit longer and let you see the results as well. So Monica, what do we have?
Okay, I am sharing the results now. If everybody can see them on the screen.
Sounds great. I hope that it wasn't just in the order that we did them, but we did have a lot of interest in the turnarounds for emergency responders, which is something that we've been hearing a lot from our stakeholder groups, that is a very dangerous and important thing, both for to respond to crashes on the highway, as well as to have room to move emergency vehicles off of the highway. So that's definitely something that we're looking at. And then as well, the additional bike and pedestrian improvements. Looks like a couple people had others, so we'll hope that prompts some additional questions. I think that is where we are going to head next. So what questions do you have? Feel free to ask our panelists any of the questions that you might have about what you've heard now or what you wanted to hear but didn't hear. And we do have a couple that I will go through here. Oh, looks like we've got 13 now, so everyone has been complying. Thank you. All right, the first question was about the emergency. I think it was related, Dave, to your comment about the emergency services and the work zone safety. Why not just close down I-270 and detour traffic to finish the project safely?
Yeah, I'm happy to answer that question, Mandy. Thank you. I think the main reason we cannot shut down I-270 during the project is because it is a hazmat corridor. I think that's first and foremost. So hazmat trucks use that corridor and cannot use the I-70 section between 225 and I-25 to get through to the east end. So often the hazmat trucks use I-270. Also, it's about 100,000 vehicles a day use that facility. And we think we can construct the project safely while maintaining 2 lanes of traffic in each direction during construction. So we don't intend on closing the highway during construction.
Great. We do have a question about how the managed lane, or would the managed lane, the express lanes that we were referring to, feed into the other express lanes on I-25 and US 36. Dave, do you want to take that one?
Yeah, I could take that one as well. Excuse me, and bear with me a little bit while I regain my voice. But yeah, they're actually within the long-term plan that CDOT has and CTIO, which is the Colorado Transportation Investment Office. We do want to make direct connects from I-270 on the east end onto the I-70 corridor. And also related to this question, eventually one day would want to make a direct connect onto the west end. What the direct connect would do is, with or without express lanes on the I-270 corridor, would allow vehicles to get onto the express lanes that are on US 36 and the express lanes that are on I-70 seamlessly without having to merge into general purpose traffic to do that. That is a long-term goal for CDOT. However, there may be an interim condition with this express lane alternative that would require us to taper the express lane traffic out of the I-270 express lanes to get onto the US 36 exit.
Great. I was going to ask a follow-up on express lanes, but I think you could use a little a break in your voice. So I think I might turn to Stacia and ask about two things that we've heard, not directly in these question and answers, but things that we've heard from our other feedback. One is, are we going to, the stakeholder working group, are we taking new members? Can people join? Is that what's the purpose of that?
Yes, thank you, Mandy. So our stakeholder working group is a type of focus group created to bring community leaders and those that have expressed a vested interest in the project together so that the project team can learn more about lived experiences traveling along I-270 and throughout their communities. We've been meeting about monthly since the start of the year and will continue to hold meetings throughout the study. Our group currently consists of community members, first responders, environmental advocacy groups, community organizations, and more. But we are always interested in hearing other perspectives as well. So if you would like to be a part of this stakeholder working group and can commit to meeting regularly about the project and sharing your ideas and sharing your experience, please feel free to email the project, or you can even type into the Q&A, and we'll be sure to share upcoming meeting details with you.
Great. Thank you for that. This is I do have another question, and this is also something that we heard last night at our in-person meeting. And I wanted to remind everybody that we do have some meetings still coming up. We'll go over those in next steps. But the question is, I heard something about a closure of Parkway Drive in Commerce City in relation to this project. It's the main way that I drive from my home to join 270 in either direction. I'm concerned about losing the street as an option and forcing neighborhood traffic onto 6th Avenue. Dave, do you want to address this? It is part of a different project, but why don't, Dave, you address that? And then Monica, if you could type in the chat the project email for the Vasquez project for people to provide comments on that project to that project team.
Yeah, thank you, Mandy. That's correct. That is a separate project. It was cleared environmentally through a different process, through an environmental assessment that CDOT did. So it is not being cleared by this I-270 environmental impact statement. However, we do have the contact information for the people who are running that project, and we're going to provide that here in the chat.
Thank you. I do have another good question here. If an express lane is added, which cash fund will the revenue be collected into? Can you provide the statute for the fund? How does this revenue directly benefit the surrounding community? The community is one of the nation's most polluted, is heavily Latino and low income. My fear is this: if the state benefits and the, I assume it means the community is left out. Dave, can you explain a little bit about how express lane funds work?
Yeah, what I'll do is I'll explain a little bit about the express lanes, and then I'll let Stacia talk a little bit about what we're doing with environmental justice as part of this project. So the express lanes are new lanes that are built in addition to any existing general purpose lanes to provide drivers the choice of a more reliable trip by paying a toll. Toll prices are set to manage the traffic and have just the right number of vehicles in the lane to provide reliable short travel time. So express lanes work to move people rather than move cars. By presenting choices, express lanes reduce delays, help manage congestion, and keep travel times reliable for motorists in all of the lanes. Related to the question about how will this revenue be tied back into the community, there's a lot of efforts that are going on from that perspective that haven't been fully ironed out. But what I will say is that Stacia is committed, and this whole team is committed to environmental justice as part of this project. So I'm going to let her get into that.
Yes, so we do recognize that the I-270 corridor runs through the middle of an environmental justice community. The community is predominantly minority and lower income. So with that, we want to make sure we're doing our due diligence to ensure voices of the community members are heard. And this is why we're doing some of our listening sessions and going to where the community is meeting and gathering input that way and just educating folks about what we're doing on the project. We want to make our information as accessible as possible. And environmental justice initiatives helps us to ensure full and fair participation by potentially affected communities in every phase of the transportation decision-making process. We are committed to environmental justice efforts on the project. CDOT also has an environmental justice office that is engaged with the project as well.
Great. I did have a couple of requests for the webinar, and that will be available on the website, as I mentioned before, so we will definitely get that out to you. Another question that we've been hearing a lot about is, what about community displacements? Are we gonna, what is the right of way or the property that we might need for the project? And are we gonna be displacing residents and businesses as a result of the project?
Yes, I can take that one. The CDOT owns a lot of right-of-way on the outside of I-270, and we also have a lot of space in the middle of the highway. So the two alternatives that we're proposing to move forward, we currently do not anticipate any acquisitions of homes or businesses.
Great. I did have a follow-up question, a couple of follow-up questions about where toll revenue goes. One is, does it stay in the community, or how does the community benefit from toll revenue if they do? And then the other is, does it stay in the corridor, or do those dollars just go to Front Range Passenger Rail?
Yeah, I think we answered the question about does it stay in the community. There's a lot of ongoing efforts to make sure that the community benefits from an express lane on a project. I will say that toll revenue must stay within the corridor. That is a requirement. So it will not be going to the Front Range Passenger Rail.
Okay. Another thing that we've heard a lot about is improving air quality. We haven't heard as much about that in this particular session, but it's definitely something that's come up quite a bit. Dave, can you talk a little bit about what we're doing for air quality and why it's not a need of the project?
Yeah, sure can. So CDOT's going to take a very serious and detailed look at air quality along the corridor. Our approach to air quality falls within the defined project goal that Chris talked about a little bit earlier, and that's to minimize environmental and community impacts resulting from the project. We will perform detailed traffic models that forecast the traffic patterns along I-270 in the year 2050, both for both build alternatives and also for the no action alternative. We can take that traffic model and predict what air quality will look like in 2050. These models are going to help us make decisions based on the applicable air quality standards. Also, we've already installed numerous air quality monitors throughout the I-270 corridor, and we're getting multiple years worth of readings in advance of any potential construction. And this is going to give us a really good baseline understanding of the conditions of the corridor, so we can understand what the impacts of the project might be.
Great. I have another question about Sand Creek Trail. Does the project team plan on doing any improvements to Sand Creek Trail or any upgrades?
Yeah, I could take that one as well. So the I-270 corridor improvements team has a need as part of the project to provide bicycle and pedestrian connectivity across I-270. So what that means is getting bikes and pedestrians over and under I-270 safely and effectively. So on the south side of the I-270 corridor, the Sand Creek Trail runs adjacent for pretty much the entire length of I-270. So I-270, built in 1960s, is a barrier to that trail right now. We've heard from multiple stakeholders. We've heard from the Sand Creek Greenway that people have difficulty coming from the north side and getting onto the Sand Creek Greenway safely and effectively. So we're looking at ways to provide better connections onto that trail, whether it be underpasses or overpasses, or providing sidewalks and trails with better sight distance and better crossing conditions near the bridges that we are responsible for replacing.
Great. We do have time for a couple more questions. So if there's anything that is burning, I think we've answered the questions that we have gotten in so far. But I'm going to turn to another question before we end. Oh, just got one coming in. How will the upgrade affect the frontage road that parallels 270 currently?
Yeah, there's actually two frontage roads. There's on the east side, Sand Creek Drive South.
I think I misspoke, Dave. I think it said upgrade. I might have said impact, but the question is about upgrades potentially.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So I'll talk about both the frontage roads. We have 60th Avenue on the west side of the project, so west of Vasquez. And then on the east side, it turns into Sand Creek Drive South. We are currently working with Commerce City and Adams County to develop potential solutions for that area. We currently anticipate that we will be just providing some pavement improvements to the south, to the Sand Creek South Drive. And then we're also looking at ways to improve 60th Avenue on the other side.
Great. One other question before we wrap up. Again, if anybody else has a question, please feel free to chat. We have a couple of additional minutes here, but one question we have heard a lot is why this is taking so long. That if we have such an urgent need, why have we been looking at it for 10 years and what happens next?
Yeah, I can take that as well. So we started the NEPA process in 2020. We originally anticipated an environmental assessment. Starting in 2023, we determined that a more detailed environmental review was needed, and we requested that an environmental impact statement be initiated. So the EIS takes time because it's a process that requires a very robust public outreach and a robust analysis of impacts. We need to get this done correctly. It's important to us that we do our due diligence. We need to understand the impacts and ensure that the community is heard throughout this process. And we also understand that many members of the public want this project done soon. So we're moving as quickly as possible with that effort. This is a very high priority project for CDOT. We're dedicating a lot of resources to getting this done correctly, but we're also trying to get it done as quickly as possible.
Great. We have one last question that just came in. Will the interchanges at York Street be improved so that they have on and off ramps in all directions instead of only one.
Yeah, we're currently evaluating that in full detail. But at this time, we do not have any additional ramps at York. We are going to improve the existing ramps.
As I mentioned before, we will be publishing this. The answers that we heard tonight, including the polls, will all be available on the webinar recording. So I know there's a couple people who missed a few of those, so make sure and check it out. You'll be able to get through the meeting, and they will be posted here shortly in the next couple days. So thank you for attending. And we will be posting the questions and answers. And there were a couple questions that if we didn't get to or didn't understand well, we will be following up with you. As a review of next steps, we will be finishing our series of public meetings, this Saturday at the Eagle Point Recreation Center from 9 to 12. And we will be reviewing the comment forms that we received there, any internal feedback that we receive. If you want to fill out an online survey based on the information that you've heard today, it's available on the project website. You can also scan that QR code to get to the next information. We'll be really looking at the feedback that we got, looking to refine and improve the alternatives, and then really get to work on the detailed design and the impact analysis. So we're going to be continuing our public outreach. We definitely want to hear from people and want to create a project that is going to make this project successful both for highway users and the community. So again, thank you for joining us, and please do visit the project website for up-to-date information. Fill out a comment form, sign up for email updates, just stay in touch. We'll have lots of opportunities for you to be involved. Good night, and thanks for attending.